I'm going to try something really shitty, and I know it's not going to work, but I just want to see how it goes.
All right.
I'm still going to try a live intro.
Okay.
So I'm literally just going to play the music, and we'll see how it comes out when I edit later. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
Sure.
See how it goes. That's way
It's
too
going to be
quiet.
really bad.
That's
Well, that didn't last long.
That's
All
not
right.
going to cut it.
Turn it up.
Oh, shit. Just point them.
Hold it directly over.
Yeah.
Leave all this in. This is comedy gold.
This podcast ready. Really getting away with it.
I think it's going to work.
Oh, God.
It was going to work.
Yeah, this is creepy. All right. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Ben Curt Till It Hurts, the podcast which this week is culture, castration, and frustration.
Yes.
All right, because this is going to be a contentious cast, everybody.
This is
going to be a contentious cast.
What items are available for weapons?
Batman statue.
You get a
He's got the
Minecraft
microphone
sword.
stand.
Yeah, I've got the microphone. I've
That's
put
easily
this
the
at-
best weapon in the room. Don't go against him.
Okay,
Yeah,
so...
I've seen Luke Cage. You can use one of those.
Luke Cage.
So,
How's it going?
we
We have a guest.
have a guest.
Who's here? Oh,
It's Trevor.
Oh.
It's Trevor. Trevor Paul.
What's up?
Welcome, Trevor.
Welcome, Trevor.
I'm so welcomed.
I should have written an intro for you. I didn't.
I write books. Done. Okay. move
Right.
on.
He writes books.
Yeah.
Author of The Legacy Chronicles.
Yep. Second book just came out in November.
Yeah. You just came back from a con in Rhode Island, right?
Yeah, it was sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It must have been pretty big, right?
It was huge. So, quick inside baseball story on Comic-Cons. Apparently, Boston Comic-Con raised their rates for booths. So, like, I pay anywhere from $200 to $300 to appear, right?
Yep.
Pay for the table. That's pretty reasonable. And that means for me, who doesn't necessarily need to make money at a con, but just wants to get as many people to look at the book as possible, if I give out a bunch of cards and I sell like 5-6 books, that's cool. I'm good. But then a vendor, is trying to make money. That's tough. Boston Comic-Con set it at $400. Nobody wanted to go. They all bailed. Rhode Island inherited like all of these people. So Saturday, which was the busiest day, and I actually took a photo of the crowd at one point. It was 22,000 people rolled through.
Oh my God.
Shit.
So it's like, and it's in the Dunkin' Donuts Center and the Rhode Island Convention Center, which are kind of like connected through this weird skywalk thing. So there's enough space. But at one point, I'm standing at my booth for 3 straight hours of people just moving, stopping,
Yeah.
moving, stopping. So it was nuts. And I sold all my books, even though I brought like way more than I brought the previous year when I sold out. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. When I boothed at a con, having that booth was like a port in the storm. It's
Yes.
like,
Oh my God.
It's like the nicest thing ever to be on the other side of the table when people are fucking butts to nuts
Yes.
shuffling through the fucking room.
Yeah.
I
just watched them and all laughed.
Yeah.
You without your booths. No.
I am a vendor.
Yeah. It is, though, like, I tried to get out a little bit and walk around and see what everybody else is doing. And, like, I'm always curious, like, James O'Barr was there the previous year, and my sister went and met him, because, like, don't know, James O'Barr wrote The Crow, which then became the film. And, like, he's one of my favorite graphic novelists. And she got me a signed picture from him, but she had to go talk to him. And she said she went down to the artist alley there, and, like, nobody was there, nobody knew who he was. Because they're all there for, like, the Stranger Things kids were there this year.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
like, what's his name? Mark Ruffalo was there. Like, all these people were there that, like, from TV. And then the big, like, scandal was all of a sudden the Walking Dead cast members couldn't be there because they were called in for these last-minute shoots.
Oof.
And, like, everybody was like, because people are walking around dressed as Negan, which, why? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're in the love affair with a barbed-wired bat? This is really strange to me. Anyway, so yeah, like, that con's really good. I'd recommend that one.
Yeah. We'll have to go sometime.
At some point.
I'm never going to go. But I would like to.
Yeah.
When we start boothing at cons.
That is definitely a good one to attend, though, too. Like,
Yeah,
I've told people just to go as guests.
I think if I didn't have that port in the storm, I could never go to a con. I'm not human enough to be able to to be able to.
They're
be
way
that
better
close.
as I self-publish, obviously, and so it's way better to be a self-publisher and go to a comic convention because people are just there, like, taking everything in, and so they see you with, like, books, and, like, my book is thick enough to look like an actual book. And some people, like, that
Yeah.
self-publish, like, smaller books, hoping that they can sell more of them, which is one strategy, and one thing that I considered was breaking my book into sections, but I was like, no, screw it, I want to write, like, an actual novel.
Mm-hmm.
What I consider, like, I read big, thick fantasy novels, so I was like, I want that. And it's pretty funny that people come in, like, you know, dressed in, like, anime attire, and I know nothing about anime, and I don't know, but they walk by, and they're there, obviously, with all their other friends dressed in anime, and, like, having a great time, and it seems like they came for one purpose. Then they see the book, and they come over, and then you start talking to them. It's like, there is a real cross-cultural, like, you know, so many people come up to me, and they're like, you know, I like fantasy, I haven't read some in a while, like, what's it about? I'm like, well, read the back, I'll answer questions. And then all of a sudden other people also just come up and buy the book and don't say a word, which is way weirder.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? That's kind of bizarre. Just like, I've literally had people go, here, I want to buy this. Okay. Do you, like, want to know anything about it? Or, like, I wrote it. Like, is that important to you? You know,
Does that matter?
absolutely
does that
not.
matter? No, it doesn't. Get out of my way. Oh, thank you for the money, I
Take
guess.
my money.
Yeah. But, like, I didn't know when I started doing conventions that was going to work.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, and then I started doing it, and I have so much fun because you have the port in the storm. Because I am not, like, overwhelmed by the constant announcing of events over speakers and walking around in, you know, bright colors and costumes everywhere. I just go back to my table, and if I have to sit down there and just, like, take a minute, I take a minute.
Yeah.
And I get very anxious at a setting if I don't have that. This is where I can be. So...
I feel that.
Yeah, right on. Right on. All right.
Enough of that bullshit.
Let's fucking do this.
I'm just like, it's okay if we don't.
Last week was really fun.
It was such a great. Actually, though, this might not be last week.
This will not be last week. This will be several weeks.
This is going out.
But this will be the last episode.
Yes.
Because I killed the last podcast by showing
Trevor
up.
he's the podcast murderer, and we've welcomed him into our
I prefer
studio.
Podcast Angel of Death, which I think is the title you suggested before we start recording.
Yep.
But I'll go with Murderer too. It's probably more accurate.
The ghost of podcast future.
Or lack thereof.
If we continue on the path we're on, he's going to show us the grave of our podcast.
Oh yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. I feel like I might turn the gain down a little bit more on
Sure,
this.
yeah.
Is that cool with you guys?
I don't
That's
care.
okay.
All right,
That's
how
fine
we,
with me.
How we doing?
That looks nice.
Could get real
I like
loud
that.
and rowdy, and that
I like that level. Yeah. Now invite all the other party guests in.
Yeah.
Bring everybody in.
The joke's on you guys. We're at the con.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the reason we're doing this is essentially because Jake wanted us to have a... Well, no, Jake told me that I had to yell at Ben about Stranger Things.
Yeah. So hello, Jake.
Yeah, hi, Jake.
Your
Hello,
dream
listener.
is coming true.
Yeah.
Your deepest
He's
fantasy.
actually, I think he's pretty pissed about this because he messaged me this morning and he was like, trying to get Trevor on without me, huh? I was keeping it a secret. And I was like, no,
This is all because I saw him at a party last night for the end of the year
I just
holiday
didn't think
thing.
to tell you that he was coming over.
my
I'm
God.
sorry. Just like, I said last week, but just like that episode 10 episodes ago,
Yep.
I didn't think it warranted conversation.
It's also like, we know each other now, Curt and I actually made sure that so Ben and I didn't strangle each other in studio, that we had
Yeah.
we
a
got the
sit down and
strangling.
talk.
We got the strangling
Yeah.
out of the way ahead of time.
Yeah, but I also can communicate with people you've introduced me to, sans you, Jake.
He doesn't have to, you don't have to be here, Jake.
Jake, you're here in spirit.
Yes.
All right.
Jake's always here in spirit. We should get a picture of Jake.
We should get
Yes!
a cardboard standing cutout
okay.
of Jake. Do you think, Jake, could you send us one?
Yeah, could you...
He's definitely got a few lying around.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I hope it's old Jake when he had the, mop top, but probably won't be. More
Yeah.
cardboard, more expensive.
Yeah.
So why are we here?
We're here because some subjects come up kind of perennially on the podcast.
Yep.
I can't stop talking about how much I hate Stranger Things. And I also can't stop talking about how much I love the Babadook, which always triggers Curtis to talk about how much you used to say
Yeah.
you think the Babadook is all right, not worth the hype, not worth the accolades. Now you've changed
Right.
somewhat.
You
right?
can't live like that. You gotta...
Can't live a lie.
You need to make a stance. You need to stand up. Fuck the Babadook. I watched it again last night. It was like the third time I've seen it.
Yep.
I don't like that movie.
That's okay.
You're wrong, but that's okay.
It's fine to be wrong. What do we want to talk about first?
Let's talk about the Babadook, please.
Babadook first.
I watched it on Wednesday too, and
all right, yeah, I watched it pretty recently.
I have notes
also.
here, and one of the notes is, and this is with actual periods after each word, so fucking good.
It's really good.
I don't know. I don't see it.
Trevor, what do you like about the Babadook?
So, we had a conversation before we did the podcast where I was saying that part of me, and this was me having seen it a while ago, not remembering clearly. I was like, I can't remember if the father figure is actually dead or if there's this, like, the Babadook is this monster created that is actually the dad. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I watched it in the first 5 seconds and answered my question. I was like,
the opening scene. What a shocking opening scene. Yeah. Like a car crash.
So,
man,
the things that I really like about it...
Jesus Christ.
The things that I really like about it, it understands tension, pain, and fear in mundane things. Like, it doesn't try to... Like, there's no jump scares in this. There's no attempt to be that kind of film. It's just like... It makes little stuff uncomfortable in a way that really made me uncomfortable watching it even again. I also like that it has moments where it's legitimately funny. Mm-hmm. Like when they go to the party for the cousin and all the like housewives are there and they're complaining about not having time to do yoga or something.
Yeah.
And, the mom who's dealing with trauma and her son who's having major issues in school is like, that's a real tragedy.
Yeah.
And I'm applauding, in the background because I enjoy that. But
it also makes me really uncomfortable, that scene, though.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Because it's like, how are they going to react to this? Well,
Right.
she's further alienating and isolating herself from the people around her.
Well, and that's the other thing that's great about it is that everything, even the funny parts or even the parts that seem like... There's not any... And this is actually something that I will say is something that I think is a big positive for Stranger Things, is there's nothing wasted in the film. Like, it's not... It's like the Chekhov's gun kind of thing, where like if you show something, it's got to mean something. And the visuals and the sound, with one very specific exception in the sound that I hate.
You mentioned it. What do you hate? What's the worst
I'll tell
part?
you the one sound I hate, so I hope it's the same.
Here we go.
I hope it's the same thing. Oh, you go first.
No. I want to hear you. I want to hear yours. If it is...
the Babadook shriek?
Yes!
It's a fucking dinosaur sound from Jurassic Park.
Yes, what the fuck were they thinking?
I dig
How
it.
do you do that? Well, that's just fanboyism. I like it. How do you, like, because everything else visually and auditorily in that film seems so carefully, like...
See, I disagree. So
Okay, but we agree that is a stupid-ass
that is
shriek.
bad. That is...
Let's make a catalog of all the sounds that the Babadook makes, alright? When it's introduced, it sounds kind of like somewhere between an insect and a reptile.
Yep.
Which I think is really appropriate for it.
Yeah.
And you don't quite... It's like the sound of cicadas. It's the sound... In a way, it's the sound of silence, right?
Yeah.
It's the sound of just nature, of chaos, encroaching into the home. And then, I don't know, I just like it. I like that it... I like that
and
it...
then fuck the rest of it. I like it.
I like that it refers to Jurassic Park, even explicitly. I think that's tight, because I think that the sound design in Jurassic Park is really good and really worth referring back to in future movies.
See, I have the
Maybe
exact,
other movies.
It has moments. I'm not saying it's a completely trash garbage movie. I think some of the pacing is done really well, and tension is handled pretty well in it. But having that tension build up and keeping you interested and going on, and then as soon as I heard that sound, it's what the fuck was that noise? It completely pulled me right out of my... At that point, I was sitting at my desk watching my computer. I was no longer in that film and in that moment.
Well, when does that sound come up? The sound comes up in the climactic scene, right?
They do it like 4 times in a row.
They do, yeah.
Towards the third act of the...
If it had showed up once, I feel like I probably wouldn't have been quite as irritated by that. But the fact that it reoccurs was the thing that grated on me.
Is it only when she's in the bedroom, right?
I believe,
and the Babadook is manifesting physically across the room from her?
He might...
And she's gazing into the darkness, and she's challenging the darkness.
I think it's also
directly.
when she's on the floor and it's hovering over her, it happens then, too.
Okay,
I think. I could be wrong.
All right, yeah.
I know it happens
4 times.
Yeah, it happens more than once.
Okay.
And
because
that is...
I was shocked.
I feel like if it had happened only one time, I might have been less... But it does. It takes you out of the movie. It took me out of it.
It really didn't take me out of it. It took me so little out of it that I don't remember it negatively. I remember it as part of the smooth, the smooth heightening of exactly what the Babadook is or means, and the enormity of what the Babadook represents to the mother.
Yeah.
Amelia, right? That's her name?
Yes, Amelia.
All right.
I mean, the thing that so one thing I noticed the second time watching it that I really enjoyed, I missed the part, and this goes back to the scene when they're at the party. I missed the part that they said that she was a writer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole thing, like the whole movie, I think we should just say is like it's a metaphor for trauma and grief, and like that's what the monster represents. Is you know, she loses her husband, as they repeatedly tell you, when she was being driven to the hospital to have her son.
Yeah.
And so there's two things going on. I think one is that there's the metaphor of the trauma of her trying to overcome the guilt and all the things associated with it over what happened, and then there's also the fact that the son is this like inherited version of the father, and that they have a contentious relationship, the mother and the son, because of that, because they see things in each other that that cause them pain, right? But in that scene where she mentions or someone else, her sister mentions that she's a writer, it made me realize, like, because one of the questions I wrote when I was watching the film the first time when she pulls the book off the shelf is, where'd the book come from? Like, how much of this is metaphorical, how much of this is literal? Because obviously the boy actually reads the book and actually sees the book. And
he finds the book,
right?
He brings it over to her.
So my impression of this, and I could be wrong, is that she actually made that book.
Oh.
Like, that's one way I think you can interpret it. And that, you know, she literally created it, and then in a non-manic, because a lot of her behavior reflects that sort of like manic, what's the opposite?
Manic depressive.
Manic depressive sort of, like when she's not in that, you know, super aggressive, hyper, like intense lack of sleep state. And so she made the book in that aggressive state, and then forgot about it and reads it to him, and that whole thing. And I loved that part.
Well, the book is Tyler Durden, essentially.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's another manifestation, just like the monster.
Yes.
I like.
The thing that I liked about that scene is that I don't even think of the book as I think one of the main problems with the film is that it's just a little too on the head. As the metaphor for loss and grief or divorce or any separation of parents and a child. I think it's a little too on the head, but I think of it as just the book as I like the dialogue, because she said, "Where'd you get that?" and you know, "Where'd you find that?" implying where did it come from?
Yeah.
And he just said it was on the shelf,
Yeah.
which I like that as a where did this grief come from? And he kind of answers it, and it's always been there. Yeah. It was on the shelf. We just never noticed it before. Yeah. I liked that, but I still think that was one piece of the whole film.
Yeah.
Kind of just being like someone trying to invoke the emotions of losing, you know, losing someone through divorce or death, or, you know, just losing somebody.
Yeah.
I think it specifically has to be through death. I don't think that it can encompass... I don't think this movie touches on losing a parent through separation. I think it is really specifically only about the complex that arises when a parent dies and one parent and the child are left behind to kind of try to pick up the pieces.
I don't agree. I definitely see it going both ways equally. I think where it's kind of packaged as a horror movie, I think the grief thing is probably, you know, stronger. But I think that you have, if you look at it from a way of divorce, it kind of looks like a woman who, if her husband left her, whether, you know, either through divorce or death, and then still stuck with this product of that thing that you didn't want to lose, and trying to realize that even though you lost this person through divorce, that they don't love you anymore, you still have to be near them because you have this connection through them. And then I think the ending is like, you know, you get to visit your dad on the weekends. Like, I think that is kind of like, that's how, if I were to look at it as a metaphor for divorce, I think that there's enough pieces where you can put it together. I think it works probably stronger with, you know, the death of a spouse, but I can also see a pretty tragic divorce on that.
Something that I don't think is as like clearly on the nose, like you were saying, is the I think there's a definite undercurrent that there was some kind of abusive relationship between her and the husband, because they do it through the way the son, when he sleeps with her, like grabs at her neck or grabs at her shoulders, and she reacts in a way this is not affectionate, this is fearful, and she looks at him in a way, you know, with the weapons that he makes and the things like that this is fear, like she's afraid of him having these qualities. And it also does help explain like her inability to move past what happened, which not that it's easy to move past the death of somebody that you've been close to, but like the fact that she seems so locked into it, I think is because she's coming from a place where she's been the abused victim. And I think all of that is implied, but you could interpret it as not true and it would still work.
I mean, I feel like the strongest evidence for that reading is the manifestation of the husband towards the end of the movie.
Yeah.
When she actually sees him, and he is not a positive figure in that scene. That's quite a frightening
Bring me the boy.
Scene. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's the part that I actually find the most, from a undercurrent of thematic stuff, that's the part that I actually thought was the most compelling.
Yeah. See, that's funny. I didn't notice that at all. I interpreted that very differently. Where it was definitely a scary thing when the husband manifested himself. I just interpreted it as a very literal, when I gave you the boy, I left. So give me back the boy.
But I think you could interpret it both ways.
I see that too, but
that
never hit me.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing you had mentioned, Curt, about the going to see your dad on the weekends. You got either of you watch Black Mirror?
No, I haven't.
I've seen most of it.
So did you see the one? I can't remember the name of it, but it's the one where the husband dies or the boyfriend dies, and then they're able to create like an artificial version of him.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, and so it becomes too weird and too strange for the girlfriend that she eventually like puts him in this artificial like robot cybernetic version of the husband in this attic, and they have a kid, and the kid goes and visits on some days.
Nice.
And it's like a less disturbing in some ways version of that same idea of like, you know, her going down at the end of the film and like feeding this guilt or feeding this fear or feeding whatever it is that the Babadook represents.
Yeah.
But like that idea that exists and that you have to acknowledge it in some way. You can put it in the attic or you can put it in the basement, but you can't actually get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, the thing that no one actually ever says in the film, but is what's the whole problem.
That's the actual theme of the movie.
Yeah. Well, and it's if you want to think of it in terms of like storytelling, it is the conflict that has to be resolved in some way. Is that no one's talking about what the real problem is here.
Yeah.
And then you get to that at the end. And it's just a very creepy way of saying, like, this is resolved, kind of.
You guys want to hear one of my theories about the movie that my wife Megan has made fun of me for?
Yes.
Yes.
So, the title of the movie is Babadook, right? It's a nonsense word.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But transpose a couple of those consonants. Dada book.
Oh.
Dada book. Babadook. Dada book. My wife made fun of me for that. And she's gonna make fun of me again for bringing it up again, but I really feel like that's... whether or not it's intentional is immaterial.
I will say that maybe it's an unintentional accident.
Yeah. Hey, death of the artist, Curtis.
But cool nonetheless.
Death of the author. I mean,
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Kill them all.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah. They don't agree with me about my interpretation. I should kill them. That's
Honestly, that's probably how my students understand that concept.
Yeah.
Despite my efforts.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff to say about the Babadook.
Yeah.
And Curtis, if I understand your objections correctly, they are. Notice I'm getting ready with the microphone.
Yeah. I
Getting the weapons
back
ready.
away.
Yeah. If I understand your objections, it's that it's too on the nose.
Yes.
It's not scary.
Yes.
And you don't like women. Is that? Am I correct on? Just joking about that last time. Curtis is.
Well, now that you bring it up,
I've been waiting to talk about this for a while.
I didn't find the movie particularly scary. Maybe that was because I found that the metaphor was a little, too close to it, so it never really felt like a monster. Before, when we had talked about this, Ben, you had asked me. You asked me what scares me, because I said nothing in that movie scares me, and I've thought about that since then, and I think what scares me is a well-written movie. It doesn't matter.
Terrified of those.
It doesn't matter what the scary thing is. You can make me afraid of it if it's done well, and I don't think this movie is done well. The more I think about it. I had made a joke about how if you cut the 10 minutes of scenes with the Babadook out of this, it would just be a Lifetime movie.
It would be Mommy Dearest.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
It's a really good movie.
And then, you had made a joke, possibly not really a joke, that if you just trimmed Jonathan and Winona Ryder's character out of Stranger Things, that too would be a Lifetime movie. And I think that's fair. So maybe I can't say that, but what I do think is that when this... I can't remember the name of the woman who directed this film.
Ooh, I can't either.
No,
but
neither. It was her first film, though.
Yeah. And I think what this movie feels like to me is that this woman had a really good story about grief. She had a really strong idea about grief that had not been told before. And it feels to me like this movie was written to tell that, and then somebody along the way said, that's not really going to sell as a movie. And it feels like the horror elements were wedged into that story to package it as a horror movie, and then they took like $20 and went to a thrift store and made the Babadook costume.
That's speculative and offensive, and I fundamentally disagree. I think that the Babadook is a horror story in the classic tradition of like 19th century ghost stories, where it's like the Turn of the Screw. Either you guys ever read the Turn of the Screw? Yep. It's a great Henry James novella.
I don't read.
Call it. I forget. Yeah. They're gonna make a movie out of it soon.
Oh, good. I'll know about it.
Right, I'll tell you about it. I'll tell you about it. They're changing the title to just The Turning. Yeah. Where you don't... It doesn't quite matter if the ghost is real or not, because the problem that the ghost is a manifestation of is real. And the horror is the problem itself, not just the ghost.
The best horror to me always plays that game with you of how real is the thing that is present,
and it's like as long as it feels psychologically real, because one of the most terrifying things about our own minds is that you can't trust what you see or sense at all. So you don't know. One day you might wake up and suddenly you see a ghost there, and then you have to think like, why is this manifesting to me?
Yeah.
Why is this happening? Or why am I having this persistent dream about this one figure? Why does this keep recurring in my mind? And it's likely a manifestation of an actual psychological problem that you are facing. And one of the great things that movies do is they make our fantasies and nightmares real, and they put them in front of us. And I think that the Babadook takes the nightmare of living in a deeply disturbed household and makes it real in ways that are both supernatural and not. For me, the scariest parts of the Babadook don't have to do with the Babadook. It's when it's when Amelia is yelling at her son, saying really mean shit to him,
which they wouldn't let the kid be in the scenes for.
Right, because
they specifically said that they used an adult like on their knees as like a stand-in because they were really concerned about not having him actually be present for that. Which is why it's so disturbing, because you realize
she digs deep. She digs deep for those scenes and goes to some really dark places. I will say, much scarier than... And Jack Nicholson does a good job in The Shining, don't get me wrong. But the character of Amelia is a much more frightening parental figure to me than Jack Torrance.
Well, I think she's far scarier than the Babadook itself.
Yeah. The Babadook is almost like a cuddly friend compared to Amelia herself.
Yeah. Right. But that goes with what I feel, though, that this movie would have been a fine drama on its own, but then they wedged the Babadook.
I really don't feel like it was shoehorned in
it's
there.
On the cover.
I do think that it's important.
Every time you look up something about the movie, it shows the Babadook.
When you look it up on fucking Google Images, because let me tell you something about middle schoolers, Curtis. They're idiots, and they don't like to sit there for 90 minutes and watch a fucking piece of art. So they're like, well, what's the important part of this movie? It's got to be the scary thing, right? Ooh, insidious monster. You look up just the part with the creepy monster, or like the Conjuring monster. Just Google this and it'll show you the stupidest part, and it's always the stupidest looking thing that shows up for 5 seconds in the movie. You didn't know this was a thing for me, but this is a real thing for me.
I didn't mean to trigger you, Ben.
I'm a triggered cuck liberal right now. And
we got there.
Yeah, the Babadook is important. It doesn't show up that often.
Right.
But it is important to the structure of the movie because it is the dark heart beating at the center of their psychological trauma. It's the core of nothingness that exists in the middle there, and you have to learn how to feed it. You have to put something there to help it become a part of your life. To as they say in psychology, to integrate the trauma into your new self.
If it wasn't the Babadook as it is in the film, it would have had to have been something else, like some other looming alien figure. Like I don't think that it's shoehorned in the sense of like they added that stuff and it was a drama. I feel like the scenes where like she vomits onto the ground in the basement and stuff like that don't make sense if you don't have some degree of another sort of supernatural presence in there. Now, if you feel like the Babadook's design and things like that are a problem, there's a conversation to be had there, I think.
Yeah. It's maybe divisive.
Yeah.
I would say. I love it, but I love everything about this movie.
I will say, I think for me, for some reason, the scariest part as far as the Babadook is concerned, the scariest time that you see the Babadook is not even when you see the Babadook. We had been talking last time we talked about it, Ben, that you asked me which forms of it appear, because you see it in different ways throughout the film. Yep. And I think easily the scariest time you see it is when you don't even see it. You see the coat hanging in the police station, and it looks like the Babadook standing there.
The thing is, that is the Babadook.
No,
that is one of its many manifestations.
And I like that idea of her finally reaching this level of desperation where she says, "I know this sounds crazy, but it's happening, and I need help." And then it's still the presence of it is in the room there, and nobody can see it but her. I liked that. Yeah.
I don't remember from the Texorcism series. Did either of you find The Exorcist frightening?
I did not like The Exorcist.
I like The Exorcist a lot.
I like The Exorcist a lot, and I saw it. I specifically remember going to see it when I was in like 6th or 7th grade when it was re-released, thinking like, "Oh, it was made in the 60s. How bad can this be?" And then like almost shitting my pants in the theater.
That happened to my brother. He had seen The Conjuring, and I was like, "You want to see a fucking movie about exorcism?
Yeah.
Let's watch The Exorcist." And he thought that because it was so old, there's no way it could be scary.
Oh yeah, and it got him.
And it worked on him.
Yeah. So the reason I bring that up is because the director of The Exorcist had seen Babadook and said that it was the scariest film that he'd seen.
I saw that.
And I think that there's actually a lot of parallels, not necessarily in the fear aspect, but the pacing thing. Like, they both feel very similarly paced, where they're both spending a lot of time building up to the tension just continuously ratchets up. And I remember pausing the film because I had to go do something, and it was at like halfway point, and I turned to Molly, my wife, and was like, "There's 45 minutes of this shit left, and I'm already like, how can it get worse?" Like that. Yeah. I mean, that I think is the thing that both of those films exist on a progressive build up, and that's I find movies like that really fun to watch. Take out whether it's scary or any of the other stuff. Like, if it continues to ratchet up the whole way, and you feel like it's getting more and more, the stakes are getting higher and higher, and what can possibly happen next, that's usually a pretty fun experience.
Yeah. I think that's it being well paced. Yeah, that's how I think of it.
Petered for me a little bit. I felt like the third that it was very well paced and had tension growing throughout it, but I do feel like in the third act that felt kind of like segmented to me, where I was like, this is the part that's really like a horror movie, and this part was like a really good drama with some horror elements. It felt. I don't know how I can't make any suggestion that would have made it better, so it's probably not a very good criticism, but it did feel segmented to me, where it felt like a very tonal shift in the film that I had noticed, which maybe, I mean, obviously when you've seen the movie 3 or 4 times, you'll start to notice the beats more than when you're immersed in it.
I was actually really impressed by that sense when I first watched it. Well, the total, from the first 2/3 of the movie, you're not expecting it to be like this knockdown drag out in the house. Like, we are trapped in this house together. Yeah. And this is going down tonight.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting them to go to a couple different places other than that.
Did you expect it to turn into Home Alone?
Not quite, but I was happy when it did.
Yeah.
I don't know. What else have we got about it?
I think the kid in the Babadook is a better actor than any of the actors on Stranger Things.
Oh, strongly disagree.
I know you like the kid actors on Stranger Things.
I think they're fantastic.
I like that kid. I have a very it's it's very hard to like peg that kid because I think he's very cute, but he's also very annoying. He's super annoying
and creepy.
Yep.
Yeah,
Which, I mean, all little kids are creepy.
yeah, true.
They're like people, but they don't know anything.
Yeah.
They're like people, but like all their teeth are all weird and shit. Like,
Little kids with shark teeth. Can we talk for a second about how creepy little kids with shark teeth are? Like little kids. Like sharp teeth. Like little kids with shark. You guys don't see those either.
One thing
There's
that
one right there.
really changed my whole perspective.
He's right outside the window
life.
of the second floor roof.
It changed my perspective on life the first time I saw the X-ray of a child's skull who hadn't lost their baby teeth yet.
Oh, and they have the
So
extra
you
layer
see all
inside.
the extra layer of adult teeth all wedged up in their cheekbones and stuff.
Yeah,
You can't unsee something
That's
like
righteous.
that. Yeah.
the human body's a weird place, man.
It certainly is. Not a nice place.
No.
The best of circumstances place.
Best of circ.
It's all we've got.
It's our own private hell, and it's all we've got.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, I think another thing that I'm probably gonna, get fed to the wolves for over is I think that. Okay, how far back do I want to go on this? How big do I want to make this statement?
Oh boy.
I have heard this as circumstantial. I don't know that this is true, but someone had told me when we were talking about this movie that it received. It's an Australian film, and it received a lot of grants because filmmaking in other countries is kind of taken more sometimes as artistic, and you can get more money given to you.
Yeah, they have like governmental commissions that are in charge of handing out money to make films in those countries.
So this budget that it has is, I believe it has a bigger budget than it seems like it has because it was given a large amount of money. But I think that being helped out with that, which doesn't matter, that shouldn't affect my thoughts on the film, but I think that and the fact that this movie has not stopped being on Netflix since it came out is solely what has made this movie as popular as it is that it's so accessible, anybody can watch it, and it's pretty good. Like, it's okay. I think that if you had to go out of your way at all to watch this movie, if you had to just put a little more effort into enjoying this movie, you wouldn't enjoy it as much. I think if you throw it in the pile of dog shit horror movies that are available 24/7 on Netflix, it looks pretty good. It's pretty good compared to a lot of shitty horror movies. But I think on its own, if it weren't just readily available all the time, it would not be looked at so fondly as it is.
I think you could say that's true of a lot of things, though, too. Like, I would like to believe that if you tossed my book in the middle of a bunch of, like, crappy fantasy, that it might rise slightly closer to the top than a few others. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like, I don't have that avenue, so whoever's reading it at this point is just, like, that's who's reading it. And it isn't going to gain anywhere near the level of following that, like, anyone that has an actual, like, publisher and marketing and all that stuff is going to. But I do think that this is a better film than most films.
Do you also
I would
think,
agree with that. I would say it's better than most films.
Yeah.
Do you also think that your book would be read a lot more if it were just in everybody's living room all of a sudden?
Yeah. Well, but I think that is that Netflix problem or Prime problem.
We're going to talk about this more when we're talking about Stranger Things. By the way,
this would be a perfect segue.
But
because fucking Stranger Things is the king of that bullshit.
I think that the bigger. Like that, I'm glad that happens less than I am pissed off that it happens.
Yeah. So essentially, Curtis, all you've said is the Babadook has a bigger audience, therefore it has a bigger audience. That's what you're taking issue with, is the size of the audience.
Well, no, I think he's saying it has a bigger audience, therefore it is more held up to a higher higher
more
level.
people.
Like it got accolades when it came out,
and if it shows up on Netflix,
it's critically well regarded. I haven't talked to most people about it, but I have a lot of problems with that statement. So you are going to get fed to the wolves over this.
It has like a 6.8 on IMDb, which is like
fucking IMDb, the arbiter of all that is good,
which is like pretty good. And then at the same time, in my opinion, which doesn't doesn't help the film. It has like a 98 or a 99 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, the critical website.
The fucking hype machine.
Yeah.
That
I don't look at either one of
unlike
those
the
things.
fucking authentic voice of God, IMDb.
I have a real beef with Rotten Tomatoes. I think the majority of people that write reviews on Rotten Tomatoes have decided how they're into. I don't. Maybe there's not much of a difference between IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes.
There is a big difference between IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes.
I personally, I feel like a lot of the people that write reviews on Rotten Tomatoes know how they feel about a film before they see it.
Curtis, nobody writes reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. People write reviews and then Rotten Tomatoes aggregates them.
Okay, but I think
so you're just saying that most of the people who write reviews of films on the internet.
I think it's a hype. I think it's a big
You're talking
hype
about
machine.
the critical reviews,
So
not
essentially-
the user reviews. Because those are two different things.
That's what you're talking about, right? Critical
Yeah.
reviews.
Let me see which one had a
Because
98.
you will perpetually see that Rotten Tomatoes critic reviews are lower in most cases than what the personal viewer or fandom reviews are. Because if you took the time to write a review, you either really hated or really liked the movie in most cases.
Yeah.
Right, unless you're a professionally paid critic.
Right, and you're being pulled in probably to say how much you liked it if you see that critics don't like it as much.
See, right there. As a 6.8 on IMDb. This is 6.8 on IMDb. And
Every time you say IMDb, a little piece of me dies.
Okay. And then on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a user score of 72.
Yeah. So what you're saying is people are stupid.
It ranks amongst most people that view the film. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Are you saying that people are smart and know a lot about movies?
I'm saying that the majority of people that watch it think it's pretty good.
So you're aligning yourself with the House of Commons, and I'm aligning myself with the House of Lords here. All right, I'm saying that critics who are paid to write about movies know more about movies than fucking Joe Schmo off the street who probably Googled the
Let's
Babadook.
not give critics too much credit.
I'm not saying they're infallible. I'm saying they know more about movies than the people who go on Rotten Tomatoes to vote up or vote down a movie that they liked or didn't like. In fact, this may be going directly against what you said about it being on Netflix. Because where most of these fucking schlubs who voted about it on Rotten Tomatoes saw it was probably on Netflix. And because they didn't have any investment, because they didn't have to go out of their way, they probably thought, that was alright.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it was pretty good. But because it was so available.
You're saying that it was so available that people thought, that was really good.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, it was, yeah.
Whereas I'm saying that it was so available. So when critics saw it, they said, wow, that was an excellent horror movie, which it is. And when the users of Rotten Tomatoes saw it, they were like, I don't know, I put it on Netflix and then I fucking did the dishes. It was alright. 7.2.
I don't know. I think that
This is the angriest I've ever been at you, Curtis.
That's fine.
Because 7 years of friendship.
Now you know how it feels when I sit here and listen to you shit on Sonic the Hedgehog. Because I guarantee you
right.
It's about the same level.
You have an ally in the room right now.
Big
right?
Sonic 2 fan.
Yeah.
I don't know. All I'm saying is that maybe I worked against myself or went off track. But all I'm saying
we're right on track right now.
is that this movie would not have been nearly as successful or watched or looked upon favorably if it wasn't just there all the time. It's a fucking...
Well, it's not looked upon generally favorably. It's looked upon generally as a 72. Now, it's looked upon by critics as a 98, all right? So if we're going to start talking about numbers that people have arbitrarily applied to art, then I think that we need to speak about the whole spectrum of numbers, okay?
Sure.
All right?
What if
That's
you
all I'm
played a
saying.
different game with this, which is, if it's not the Babadook, what movie should have gotten that attention that didn't? Like, what in that genre would have deserved and from any stretch of films should have gotten the same level of attention and...
Because you are objecting to the popular consensus that
Right.
The Babadook is a good movie.
Because I think that's a fair argument to say. It's this film got all this attention, but we really missed out on,
I think it is. I think it's a fine movie. I just think it's overhyped. And I think its availability has made it overhyped. Don't make me say it's the McDonald's of fucking movies. Don't make me say that because
It's okay to say wrong things if you want
there's
to.
a Babadook down the street from every home, and 99 billion people have watched it.
You know pretty much what you're getting.
that it's better than a fucking steakhouse burger.
See, I don't think The Babadook is that widely viewed or overhyped.
With this, the only reason I base this over hype is that it is very rare to hear about a horror movie outside of being interested in horror movies.
You hear about one or two a year. But you also didn't like The Witch, though. So
let alone, I have a different problem with The Witch.
Let alone, Witch episode.
My wife
a foreign horror film.
Movie.
A foreign horror film.
Yep.
So, by the time that in fucking, 2014 when this came out, I think, to have just been, like, hearing about it, there was a lot of hype.
But you run in horror movie circles.
Not really.
You keep up with them somewhat.
Not
you
really.
know someone who really keeps up with them.
But I don't keep up with the.
Do you remember
newest.
where you heard about the Babadook?
I believe I had seen advertisements for it, and the first time I had ever listened to it was on a podcast that I only listened to see why the fuck is everybody talking about this movie.
So you saw advertisements for it, and then you investigated farther.
I had seen...
That hardly seems like a hype train, Curtis. That seems more like movie marketing 101.
You know, I think that... It just seemed like they were talking about it because everybody had been talking about it.
It had just come out. You saw an advertisement for it. You didn't see like a grassroots upswell of hype for it.
I did. Especially... This isn't fucking Batman versus Superman. This is an independent horror movie from Australia.
It got picked up for release in the United States, and then I don't remember what studio put it out. But yeah, you put some advertising dollars behind a movie that you believe in. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. All right, call me crazy.
That's capitalism.
But I think advertising for a movie that you bought so that you could release it in the United States is perfectly fine and no reason to be pilloried.
I think that this movie had more hype than any other foreign independent horror film.
Based upon what evidence, Curtis?
What are some other very as popular as the Babadook foreign independent horror films in the past 10 years?
Or even domestic. This might get me lynched, I don't know. But I personally really like Devil's Rejects. I think that's an awesome, fantastic...
I haven't seen it since it came out, but I do remember liking it.
I thought House of a Thousand Corpses was pretty trash.
And I think House of a Thousand Corpses is okay for what it is.
Right.
I think with Rob
Devil's
Zombie,
Rejects was legitimately great.
Your target is trash. He kind of puts that trash filter over his.
But then he made a Devil's Rejects, which I was like, this is a legitimately awesome movie.
It's a Western.
Yeah,
right?
and I have a soft spot for Rob Zombie because I met him once, so he's just a cool guy.
How was he?
He's awesome.
He seems really cool.
He is the coolest guy. Yeah. He's very down to earth. But he that film didn't get and this is interesting too because part of the problem I think is that anybody who saw House of a Thousand Corpses was like, oh, Devil's Rejects is going to be more of this over the top slashery gore nonsense film.
Yep.
And Devil's Rejects was not that. And then a few people who took the time to actually give it a chance were like, this is actually a really good film, but it didn't get the same level of attention that Babadook did. I do somewhat agree with Curt that Babadook got a degree of hype that other films in its genre don't always get. And I think that's because it's an artsy horror film.
So, and not to say that this would prove my point, but I'm just thinking, and now I'm curious though, can we think of any other foreign independent-ish horror films that have gotten as much traction as the Babadook in the past?
Was Antichrist foreign, or was that a American film?
I believe Antichrist was.
I think it's
foreign.
I think it was a European movie. Defoe was in it.
Defoe was in it. But because the two that I was thinking of was Antichrist and then Train to Busan, which were, and at the same time, not to say that this proves at any point or anything, also picked up big heavy distribution on Netflix.
Right.
And I still don't think, for me, and this is just my opinion, so this has no merit, but those movies still didn't have the amount of...
You cannot, in good conscience, tell another person to watch Antichrist.
No, you can't.
You really can't. That's
not
very different.
Not an accessible film.
Yeah, that's a very different. Just say put it lightly.
Which I think is
Antichrist is somewhat inaccessible.
Babadook is that's a film I could tell my parents to watch, and they would they might not like it or not, but they would watch it. You know what I mean?
The person I trust most in the world, my wife, I couldn't. We watched Antichrist, but I told her, you're going to want to look away at some point.
That film is...
I would never recommend that to anyone.
We do need to do an Antichrist episode now. Maybe it should be this episode, because now I'm just thinking about it.
I don't know.
I've watched that movie 3 or 4 times. I know.
That window, can we go out that way?
We gotta go.
Yeah.
Is that window
safe.
accessible for exit?
Not safe, but safer than this room.
Right.
We need to go.
Yeah, but I think it's also tough with like Train to Busan because it's a foreign language film, and so like a bunch of people will just not watch a movie because it's a foreign language film, which is stupid, and those people are wrong. But like, you know, those are both great movies. Well, I don't know. Antichrist is an art movie with a capital A-R-T.
Yeah.
And Train to Busan is like a really good zombie / horror / chase movie. And I don't know that you can compare either of those two to Babadook because of their themes.
And maybe,
but I think that the way you're talking about like how they're distributed does totally make sense. I don't know that you could have taken Antichrist and a studio would have been like, we really need to promote this, because then people are like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, Antichrist is important to like the history of cinema, more than it is important to
I think
any of the
Babadook
history
falls
of
in a
genres.
weird place because it's arty in a way. Arty, that's not a word. It's artsy in a way, but it's also like a very understandable horror film.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, to work against my own point that I'm trying to make,
yes, Chris,
I would
please.
I would believe any person that was like, the Babadook is a much better film than Antichrist or Train to Busan.
Right.
Totally, I'll give it that to you.
What are you talking about?
Just to say that because it doesn't have as much hype as the Babadook, that is very possible that it's just not as good of a movie. I can concede to that.
Right.
I don't know. I just think that...
I think it might be an accessibility thing. I think it's like if you turn on Babadook and the way that film starts and the way that it goes, like it gets you in pretty quick, and once you're in a certain point, you kind of just want to finish it.
It's like we as a culture have seen The Exorcist and we've seen The Shining, and those are the two main reference points for the Babadook.
And I think that actually supports your argument, which is the fact that, let's say all of these films got equal like distribution, attention, funding, marketing, like everything was fair across the board. I still think Babadook would have been watched more and liked more. Not necessarily because it's a better movie, because I think you could have a real argument about which of those three is the best film. But I think because if you watch the first 20 minutes of any of those, the one that you're going to stick with the longest is the Babadook, because it's like, I get this.
If you're a normal person, maybe.
Right.
But I would I would probably watch Antichrist again.
Yeah, I'm saying if you're talking about like the general public, that's like, let's
recognize
use
that
your
I'm
example.
a
Put it on
broken,
Netflix,
person.
and these three are at the top, and these are the three movies to see. And you start each one of them. The one you'll probably watch the whole way through is probably Babadook.
Have you ever gone on Netflix and read the reviews for Antichrist?
No.
It's
I
an
didn't know
adventure.
you could look at reviews on Netflix.
I think you still can.
Oh, really?
I know you could before. They might have taken that functionality out when they took out the star ratings and turned it into the thumbs up and thumbs down system.
Good or bad.
Yeah. Did you like it or was it dumb?
We really don't give a shit about your opinion. This is just to help our algorithm machine. So.
Yeah, the robot that we hired to tell people
he
what
hated
to watch.
stars. That robot was really pissed by stars.
But
I can keep track of 5 things.
I think the thing that I am trying probably overall to say is that a lot of the success of this movie is not just based on the quality of the movie. It's the accessibility of the movie. It's the fact that it's in everybody's living room. It's not that scary. It's not Antichrist. It's not
Antichrist isn't that scary.
It's not as fucked up. It's not as scary.
Antichrist is existentially terrifying. It's more so than it is horror movie scary.
And it hooks you in because the drama, I think for a lot of people, and myself included, the drama is a better part of that movie, the story, than the horror elements of it. I think it's kind of a weird horror movie because I don't really think it's... I feel like it's a weird horror movie because I think it's a better drama with scary stuff in it than a horror film. I would be surprised to see if anyone, my top 5 favorite horror movies of all time, any 5 movies... If the Babadook were one of them, it would be a weird choice amongst the other 4.
It probably wouldn't crack my top 5. But...
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you've got a point. I think the idea that it had, like, the distribution was definitely part of it becoming popular. But I also think it deserves to be popular. I think it's a very, very good movie. Like, I'm still trying to craft a top 50 favorite movies. My personal of all time, Babadook's probably in there.
Yeah, it makes my top 50.
50's a lot of movies. I've done that.
Yeah, you know what,
By
though?
the time
It's
you
fucking hard to do.
Especially if you're ranking them, you're like, do I like 46 more than 47?
No, I haven't. The hard part is that I can't get past what the 50 are.
Yeah.
I have like 75 that I want to include, and I'm like, so.
Yeah. So, okay.
All right.
I don't know if we'll ever come to much more of a...
We're at loggerheads right now.
Yeah, I don't think much is going to happen.
Yeah. But I'm glad we've aired our grievances.
Me too. And like I said,
I told you this podcast was going to die.
After all the shit that I've thrown, I still think this movie is fine. I wouldn't tell anybody not to watch it. It has great moments. I think in some aspects of it are great. I don't understand
why it's a horror movie.
I would never ever call it a modern horror masterpiece or essential viewing. Yep. But you've done both of those things in the past week.
And I stand by those things.
So yeah, that's just where I fall on it. I know we're way too defensive to change anyone's opinions at this point.
No, this isn't about changing opinions.
Tension's
this is
pretty high.
This is about the court of public opinion telling us who's right.
Yeah, we should start a fucking Survey Monkey and see if we can get people to vote.
Who was right?
Who was right about the Babadook?
Yeah.
Curt or Ben?
I'd look at that data.
Yeah. It would have 2 votes. It would be you and Jake split.
We definitely do it side by side. Right, you make sure we want to be as divisive here as possible.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're all going to fall on Stranger Things, though.
I fall on the side of wanting to take a quick bathroom break before we get into Stranger Things, because I have a lot to say.
All right, we'll pause. We'll be back in a little bit.